Well, that's an awful lot of hype for some end ribs, but there you have it. So today I am going to discuss putting on the rib nuts on the wing root and the wing tip, as well as attaching the end rib itself, which I've got both of those right here. That's what this video is going to focus on. So let's go take a look at it. All right, so today I'm back in the hangar working on the Bearhawk. We're gonna start by taking a look at the build manual, and then we'll get started drilling out these rivets and then drilling for the rib nuts themselves. Let's hop into it.
This portion of the build starts on page 10 of the current Wings Build Manual. First, I need to mark every other rivet on the upper surface, starting with the second to the front rivet.
It is a cold, nasty, dreary day here, so I'm hoping that the rain that is falling outside is not preventing you all from hearing this. But I've already marked the upper surface. Now I'm coming back around and marking the lower surface. You do the exact same thing. You skip every other rivet, just this time you start with the very first rivet as you are going up. Both of them should be 17 rivets that you're either cutting out or 17 locations that you're going to prep for a rib nut. So that way later, the plastic fairing can actually attach to this wing root between the fuselage and the wing itself.
Per the build manual, you'll want to center punch the rivets to create a small divot in the top of each that the drill can seat in. Then, using a number 40 drill bit, you can carefully remove these rivets. There should be 17 total rivets on both the upper and lower surfaces for you to drill out. Once drilled, these holes will need to be upsized to a number 27 for the K1000 nut plate to be installed later. On the wing roots, this will allow for a non-structural fairing between the wing and the fuselage to create a clean, attractive finish for the aircraft. On the lower surface, only the nose cap will need the rivets drilled out because none exist behind the spar. Also, you'll want to start with the first rivet on the lower surface rather than the second one.
All right, so while you're not drilling the rivets out from the front spar up on this is going towards the trailing edge here on the lower surface, you are still going to prep each location's nut plates, and that's what each of these are circled for. So I am gonna go ahead and upsize these to a number 27 hole, and then prep everything with the K1000-06 nut plate template. And the only one that's different from that is these upper two are going to be the K2000, which is basically instead of a split leg, the actual legs are on the same side. So that way this can truly be right here, and I still have the correct edge clearance by putting the two legs here. So that's what we're doing. I have swapped back to number 40 drill bit, and I've got my K1000 nut plate template. This is the same tool that we used back when we were running around the fuel tank here. So I am going to be doing this again to where I set up, and then I will squeeze the nut plates on the entire upper surface per the build manual, and around the lower surface up to the front spar. So let's go ahead and get started with that.
As previously mentioned, some builders will use a K1000 nut plate as their jig to drill these holes out. You will inevitably destroy a nut plate doing this, plus the tool is designed for a much higher tolerance. I highly recommend just picking one up. They're not too expensive, and it is worth its weight in gold for the convenience if you have more than a dozen nut plates to drill on whatever project you're working on. Next, I got out my microstop with the number 40 cutter and prepared all the locations for the rivets. You don't countersink the center hole on this, as the fairings will not be dimpled into them. Just the rivets themselves need countersinking. Both the build manual and my rivet calculation suggested that a countersunk rivet needed to be a 3.5, and there is one exception to this, and the build manual mentions it, so you can't miss it.
Man, that is a perfect flush rivet right there. And that thing just slides right in. It's not too shallow, it's not wobbling. That's pretty.
Use some scrap metal to help set your micro stop. I have a separate video dedicated to setting up and using the countersinking tools, specifically this micro stop from Aircraft Spruce. So look that up if you're needing some help with that. It's straightforward and simple as long as you take the time before cutting on future airplane parts to test it out. I went ahead and cut the lower surface rivet holes, deburred both sides of the material, and then chip chased everything, as well as cleaned up my work area before proceeding on to squeezing any of the rivets.
So I've been struggling with my nut plates that I am squeezing here, not being flush when I go to squeeze the rivet. So what I've started doing is I've taken the Cleco and I've run it through like normal to where it goes through the skin, grabs the nut plate, and then is pulled on the back side. But what you can see here is that there's actually a gap on this bottom nut plate hole, and to prevent that from occurring, I'm actually going ahead and grabbing a screw, and I am physically putting the screw into the nut plate, just a number 6 screw here, and I am screwing that in to where it grabs that nut plate and starts to pull it down for me, so that way the nut plate is then forced flush, and now I don't have any problem here, and I can squeeze that bottom rivet, pull the Cleco, squeeze the top. It's 10 seconds longer to put that screw in, but man, is it a lot easier to squeeze these things. Okay, so there is one little thing different about these rib nuts here. Where the front spar on the upper surface meets with the skin, there is a rivet that is, I think, flat out impossible to rivet without bucking it. You can't squeeze it. All this is doing is holding in the rib nut that's going to hold the fairing in at the wing root. It is okay to use a pull rivet. So this is a pull rivet, and there's a handful of these on this aircraft. I assume the entire last row of them has to be pull rivets. But this is a pull rivet squeezer. What will end up happening is that the rod will be pulled down, and the tool's going to try to pull this thing down, and the tip of this is larger than the shaft, so it's going to compress it, and basically it's going to squeeze the metal together, and it's going to break itself, but in such a way that it is a permanent hold. So this is the tool, you just insert it in the end right here, and then you can squeeze it and it will pull the rivet down and it'll be permanent. And that's what we're gonna do on this one right here. All right, so I just finished up the wing roots. I've got everything rib nut now. The kids came down here tonight and let me know that Mama's got supper ready, so we're gonna head back up to the house once I get everything cleaned up. And that's got that part of this build done. So next time I'm gonna get started over here doing the somewhat of the same thing, to where I put nut plates for the wing tip rather than the wing root fairings, and we'll go from there. We are back in here today. I've flipped the Bearhawk wing cradle around now, and I'm getting ready to start on these wing tips. While I will not install the actual wing tips themselves until much later, really once the entire wing is done and I'm running the wires out to the nav lights and strobes, I am putting on the nut plates, just like I did on the wing root, that the wingtip will attach with. That involves riveting the upper surface nut plates into place, as well as the lower surface up to, I guess, coming around the bottom side out of the camera view here, up to the front spar, just like we did on the wing root. There is one small exception to the wing tips, and that is what they refer to as the end rib. So let's take a look at that.
The end rib and pocket skin rib will be located in your wing boxes. There will be one of these for each wing, and it's pretty self-explanatory how they need to be riveted together. You'll assemble the two individual pieces prior to assembling the unit to the wingtip. Just like on the wing root, you'll remove every other rivet, starting with the second rivet from the front on the upper surface and the first rivet on the front of the lower surface. Then, this will be prepped for number 6 nut plates, just as we did on the other side of the wings.
All right, so we've got the lower surface at the wingtip and the upper surface now prepped. These are all ready to be riveted. I have not squeezed those rivets yet. I'm about to do that, but I do want to point out that if you're looking at the plans here, I'm kind of doing this out of order. Step 1 was to kind of rivet the two pieces of the end spar together. And the reason that the kit planes don't come with this as one piece is literally how they ship. Like, it would be very difficult to ship that wing spar as one single spar piece and it not to be damaged. If you're doing a plans build, one of the things that they make mention of is the fact that if you are doing this last wingtip, because this is the wing right here, I know I'm casting a shadow over it, but your last wing rib is supposed to be a full-length rib. So this would be something that a plans-built aircraft would not have. But for our kit aircraft, what we've got to do is actually take that wing rib and rivet that in here. So I'm going to squeeze these rivets, and then later on we'll come back and I will do this, actually the last thing on this page, on both sets of wings here. And I've actually done both of these up to this point now.
If you have not ever done any riveting before, you'll want to practice a little bit on two scrap pieces of metal. Just drill some holes through them and then use some spare rivets or order some extra ones and practice riveting these. It is a trick and can be difficult to correctly be able to handle a rivet gun and a bucking bar. Fortunately, I've had some experience both repairing actual certified aircraft as well as through A&P school doing sheet metal repairs, so I feel pretty confident going into using the bucking bar again, but still, you know, it would be wise to practice if you've not had this opportunity much in your time.
All right, so you can see that the factory head here is flush. I haven't crinkled the skin anywhere, cocking the squeezer at an angle, and then on the back side I've got three very well formed shop heads here that are the correct dimensions. I've sort of checked them. You can do this with a go no go gauge, but I don't have one, so I'm just using the ruler to measure and make sure these are correct. Now this last one right here, I'm gonna have to end up hooking up the rivet gun and actually bucking this one with a rivet gun, because my tool will not actually reach to it because of that flange. You can see how that flange is offsetting, it's sort of pinching it. So I'm gonna actually have to set up a bucking bar and rivet gun real fast.
It's imperative to make sure that you're very accurate and that the end rib is level and square to the rest of the end of the wing. I used a level and a speed square to do this and used some clamps to hold it in place while I was making sure that it was still contained. And then you're just going to transfer the holes for the rivets as well as for the nut plates up the end rib to the end of the rib, about as far as you feel comfortable going. You want to be within 6 inches of the very end of the rib. You can go ahead and squeeze the nut plates on the upper surface end rib, but you do not want to squeeze the nut plates that go through the lower surface skin on the lower surface. This won't be done until the wing is closed up at the very end of the build. Now I'll go ahead and dimple the nut plates and the skin on this end rib and install the nut plates on both the lower and the upper surface, as there is no skin for it to attach to.
All right, so before I put the other end rib on, I'm actually gonna go ahead and drill the holes, and instead of countersinking these, because this metal is so thin and it's just this metal and a nut plate, what I'll end up doing is dimpling both the metal and the nut plate themselves, and then squeezing a -3 rivet right here as well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do all of that, get this done with, so that way it can be done, and I can go on to this next one, and we'll be completely done with page 12 of this build manual.
So that wraps it up for this video. Next time we are going to be jumping into the aileron system on the Bearhawk Companion. And I'm a little bit under the weather today. That's why my voice sounds so nasally, just congestion from how cold it's been lately here in Middle Tennessee. While this was shot at the beginning of December, I am shooting this right around the time that all that ice and snow hit Middle Tennessee in January of 2026. Hopefully, as I go back into the spring semester, I'll have the ability to edit these videos while on campus doing office hours and whatnot, and be able to keep on schedule getting some of this content out. We've gotten a lot done over this break. I am doing stuff on the fuselage now, excited about some partnerships that are going, and I look forward to sharing that in future videos. I appreciate you watching, and I can't wait to share the next part of this build with you. Have a great rest of your day. I'm going to warm up.